I always thought the dead stayed buried. That once you say goodbye, it's over. The chapter closes and the world quietly moves on. But nothing about my sister's death ever felt real. They said she passed away in a car accident 3 years ago. My mother broke the news over the phone, voice trembling, saying words that didn't sound like hers. It was instant, sweetheart. She didn't suffer. Then came the rush funeral. Closed casket. A short ceremony in a town 2 hours away. And just like that, she was gone. No one let me see her. No one sent photos. My dad said it was for the best, that the crash had been too graphic. I was living across the country for work then, and they told me not to fly in, said I'd only make things harder. So I grieved from afar. I kept her number saved in my phone, reread old texts, and scroll through photos when the nights got too quiet. But in the back of my mind, something never added up. Last month, I finally decided to visit her grave, something I had avoided for years because it made everything too real. I booked a flight, rented a car, and drove straight to the cemetery my parents told me about. Except when I got there was no headstone, no grave with her name, just empty grass. I thought maybe I had the wrong plot, so I asked the groundskeeper to check the registry. He frowned, scrolled through his iPad, and looked at me like I just said something impossible. "There's no one buried here by that name," he said. "Are you sure she was laid to rest in the cemetery?" My heart sank. I showed him the address. The same one written in my mother's handwriting. The one on the letter she sent after the funeral. He shook his head slowly. And that's when he handed me a faded envelope they found weeks earlier, left near an unmarked grave, addressed to me. The writing on it stopped my breath. It was my sister's. My hands were shaking as I turned the envelope over. The paper was soft and worn, like it had been out in the rain more than once. My name was still there, faintly smudged, but written in the same looping script my sister always used. For Daniel, it didn't make sense. She'd been gone for 3 years. 3 years of birthdays without her. 3 years of calling her number and getting that robotic voice. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. The groundskeeper must have seen the color drain from my face because he stepped closer. "Sir, you okay?" I wasn't. Not even close. I took the letter to my rental car, shut the door, and just sat there for a long time. Rain started to fall. Light at first, then harder, streaking down the windshield like the sky itself was crying for me. Finally, I tore the envelope open. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper. No fancy stationery, just the kind she used to doodle on when we were kids. The first line hit me so hard, I stopped breathing. If you're reading this, it means they finally stopped lying. My stomach turned. Every word that followed felt like it was cutting through the last 3 years of my life. Mom and Dad didn't tell you everything. They couldn't. They said it was for my safety. I didn't die, Danny. They made me disappear. I dropped the letter. My pulse was pounding so hard, I could barely hear. My sister, the one I buried in my heart, was alive. And my parents had lied about it. I picked the letter back up, my hands trembling as I read on. "I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you 1,000 times. But I couldn't risk it. The people I was involved with, they're dangerous. I messed up, Danny. I got into something bad, and I had to vanish. Mom helped me. Dad agreed. You were the only one they kept in the dark because they knew you'd come looking." I could feel my throat closing. Every childhood memory flashed through my head. Us building forts, her stealing my hoodie, late-night talks when she promised me we'd always be honest with each other. Now all I could see was betrayal. 3 years of mourning something that wasn't even true. I read the last line at least a dozen times. "Don't try to find me. But if you do, don't tell them you know. Please, for both our sakes." The signature at the bottom, a small heart beside her name, was the final blow. That was hers. Always had been. I sat there for what felt like hours, listening to the rain hammer against the car roof, feeling every ounce of trust one ever had in my parents dissolve. By the time the rain stopped, I knew exactly what I had to do. I started the engine and drove straight to my parents' house. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than it ever had before. 3 hours of straight highway, empty fields, lightning in the distance, and a silence so heavy it pressed against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. I must have replayed that letter in my mind 100 times. Every word, every sentence, every lie that shaped my grief. I had cried for her, prayed for her, imagined her last moments, while my parents watched me from across the dinner table and said nothing. When I finally turned down the street I grew up on, it didn't even feel like home anymore. Their house at the end. Same white porch, same oak tree, same porch light glowing in the dark. But now it felt smaller, colder, like a ghost of the life I thought we had. I parked outside, engine still running. For a long time, I just sat there staring at the front door. My hands wouldn't move. I kept thinking about what I'd say. How do you even start that conversation? Hey, Mom, Dad, I found out my dead sister isn't dead. It sounded insane, but so did everything else about this day. Finally, I stepped out of the car. The night air was cold, sharp, the kind that bites at your skin and makes you feel awake in the worst possible way. When I knocked, it took my mom a full minute to open the door, and the moment she saw me, her face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. "Danny," she breathed, hand on her chest. "What are you doing here? It's late." I held up the letter. "Where is she?" The color drained from her completely. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. My dad appeared in the hallway behind her, holding a coffee mug, wearing that same old flannel shirt he's probably had since the 90s. He froze mid-step when he saw the paper in my hand. "So it's true," I said quietly. "She's alive." The words seemed to echo through the whole house. Mom leaned against the doorway, tears welling in her eyes, not the kind that come from sadness, but from being caught. "Danny, please," she whispered. "You don't understand." "No," I snapped. "You made sure I wouldn't understand. You let me believe she was dead. You let me bury her in my heart. While you both, what? Sent her off to live some secret life." Dad set the mug down on the side table, but his hands were shaking. "It wasn't that simple," he said. "You don't know what she got mixed up in." "Then tell me." I yelled. "Tell me what could possibly make you fake your daughter's death and lie to your own son for 3 years. Mom started sobbing then, quietly, like she was trying not to wake the ghost in the house. "She was in trouble," she whispered. "Serious trouble, Danny. She called us one night crying, saying people were after her. She was terrified. We thought they'd kill her. So we did what we had to." "So you killed her on paper instead," I said. Dad's voice hardened. "We protected her. You have no idea what she was involved in. She begged us not to tell you. She knew you'd never stop until you found her." He wasn't wrong. Even hearing it now, I felt that same impulse burning in my chest. The urge to fix it, to find her, to make this right. "You should have trusted me," I said quietly. "You should have let me help her." Mom shook her head, stepping closer. "You were too good, Danny. You always believed the best in people." She didn't want to drag you into the mess she created. She made us promise. Her voice cracked on that last word. Promise. The same word she used when I was a kid, when she promised monsters weren't real. But they were, and they lived in this house. I looked around the living room. The same couch, the same old clock ticking away on the wall. Time had moved forward, but the air still smelled like stale coffee and unspoken truths. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. "Where is she now?" Neither of them answered. They just looked at each other. That silent parental exchange that always meant they were hiding something. "You can't go looking for her," my dad said finally. "If she finds out you know, she'll run again. Or worse." "Worse than what?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just looked down, jaw tight, eyes full of something I'd never seen before, fear. That was the moment I knew, whatever my sister was hiding from, it wasn't over. And my parents weren't just protecting her. They were protecting themselves. I barely remember the drive home that night. My body was there, but my mind, it was still standing in that living room, surrounded by the ghosts of every lie my parents ever told. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, just sat there in the dark, with that damn letter on the table. the one written in my sister's handwriting, trembling like the ink itself was scared of the truth. Danny, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Her words looped in my head over and over until sunrise bled through the blinds. That morning, I drove straight to the cemetery, the same place I'd stood 3 years ago, crying into my hands while they lowered an empty coffin into the ground. The grass was overgrown now. The marble headstone still gleamed in the cold light, in loving memory of Sarah Mayfield, 1996 to 2022. I crouched down, tracing the carved letters with my fingertips. They felt colder than I remembered. Maybe because now I knew this grave wasn't real. It was a cover-up, a stage prop in the cruelest performance my family had ever pulled off. I whispered to ground like she might somehow hear me. "Where are you, Sarah?" That's when I noticed something strange. A small bouquet of lilies rested at the base of the stone. Fresh, like someone had just been there, and tucked between the stems was a folded note. My heart started hammering. I looked around. Empty cemetery, gray skies, not a soul in sight. With shaking hands, I picked up the note. It wasn't addressed to anyone, but the handwriting wasn't hers. Sharper. "Mail," it said. "You shouldn't have come back here. Some graves are better left closed." My blood went cold. I spun around, scanning the tree line, the road beyond the fence. Nothing, just the wind moving through the grass. But I swear I felt eyes on me, like someone was out there watching. I stuffed the note in my pocket and drove off fast, checking the rear-view mirror every few seconds. By the time I got home, my hands were still shaking. I pulled out my laptop, opened every old message, every photo, every scrap of memory I had of my sister. There had to be a clue, something I missed. Then I remembered something, the tattoo. She'd gotten it the year before she died. A small crescent moon on her wrist with tiny coordinates under it. I zoomed in on an old photo of her hand. The coordinates were blurry, but I could make out enough to search them. They led to a small town 2 hours north. Population, 4,000. A place called Riverside Hollow. My stomach dropped. I'd never heard of it. Neither had my parents. Or so I thought. Because when I went back to that letter, the one my sister supposedly wrote, there was a single line near the end that suddenly made sense. "If you ever need to find me, follow the river. Riverside Hollow." The name wasn't a coincidence. I packed a bag that night. Flashlight, charger, camera, and the note from the grave. Before leaving, I stood in my living room, staring at the photo of me and Sarah from when we were kids. She had her arm around me, a big smile and a missing front tooth. I used to think that picture was innocent, just childhood, but now it felt like evidence. Proof that everything we were was built on love, and everything after was built on lies. As I stepped out into the night, I thought I heard something. A car door slammed down the street. But when I turned, the road was empty. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't the only one going to Riverside Hollow. And for the first time in my life, I realized my family's secrets didn't just destroy trust. They might get me killed. The drive to Riverside Hollow took just over 2 hours. But it felt like I was crossing into another life. The city lights behind me faded into a blur of dark trees and open road. And for the first time in years, I was completely alone with the truth and my fear. I kept replaying that note in my head. Some graves are better left closed. Who the hell writes something like that? And how did they know I'd show up there at that exact time, on that exact day? When I finally crossed the old wooden bridge into Riverside Hollow, the air felt heavier, like the town itself was holding its breath. It was small, maybe a dozen streets, a few shuttered shops, a diner that looked like it hadn't seen a customer since the 90s. I pulled over near the riverbank, cut the engine, and listened. The sound of running water mixed with the distant hum of crickets. Then I saw it, a wooden sign half-rotted, barely legible. Riverside Hollow, founded 1892. And under it, someone had carved into the wood with a knife. You can't bury the past. My pulse quickened. I needed answers. So I started at the diner, the only place still open. The waitress was in her 60s with tired eyes. Her name tag said Marlene. I ordered a coffee, and while she poured, I asked if she'd ever heard of a woman named Sarah Mayfield. For a moment, she froze. Then she gave me that slow, cautious look, the kind people give when they know something but wish they didn't. "You a reporter?" she asked. "No," I said quietly. "I'm her brother." Marlene's lips pressed tight. She set the coffee down, but didn't walk away. "Then you should have come sooner." That sentence hit harder than a punch. Before I could say anything, the doorbell jingled. Another customer walked in, a tall man, dark jacket. "Hood up." He didn't order anything, just walked straight to the back booth, sat down, and faced the window. Marlene lowered her voice. "If you want to know about your sister, don't ask around here. People get nervous. Go see the cabin by the bend, the one near the old sawmill. She used to stay there." Then she leaned closer. "And, honey, don't go alone." By the time I looked back, the man in the corner was gone. Outside, the air had turned colder. I pulled my jacket tighter and started walking toward the river. The moonlight reflected off the water like shattered glass, and in the distance, through the trees, I saw it, a small wooden cabin, light flickering inside. The door creaked open easily, like it had been waiting for me. Inside, it smelled like dust and rain. There were papers everywhere, receipts, drawings, half-burned letters, and on the far wall, a corkboard covered in photographs. My breath caught. Dozens of pictures, newspaper clippings, maps, and in the center of it all, a photo of me. It was years ago. I am at college, laughing with friends. Someone had circled my face in red ink. Right beside it, another photo of my sister, smiling, standing next to that same man I saw at the diner. My hands trembled as I lifted a folded paper from the table. It was another letter, written in her handwriting. "Danny, if you found this, it means I couldn't stop them. They think I'm gone, but I had to disappear. Mom and Dad aren't who you think they are. Please trust no one, especially anyone who says they're helping you." The floorboards creaked behind me. I turned, flashlight beam cutting to the dark, and for half a second, I saw a shadow at the window. Then the glass shattered. I ducked, heart pounding, as something heavy hit the floor beside me. A rock, wrapped in paper. On it were 5 words written in thick black marker. "Leave now. She's not safe." I ran out of that cabin like the world was collapsing behind me, back to my car, keys shaking in my hand. But as I started the engine, headlights flashed in my rearview mirror. A black SUV, no plates, parked across the road. And that's when it hit me. They weren't trying to hide Sarah from me anymore. They were trying to hide me from her. The black SUV didn't move for the first few minutes. It just sat there, idling, headlights cut into fog, while I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Then the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Same build, same posture as the one from the diner. He didn't say a word, just raised his hand, pointed toward the forest, and then vanished back into the trees. My gut screamed at me to drive away. But something else, something stronger, told me to follow. I killed my lights and crept down the dirt trail until I saw a faint glow in the distance. A small cabin hidden deep in the woods. And there on the porch was she, Sarah. She looked older, thinner, her hair tied back, a flashlight in one hand and a pistol in the other. When our eyes met, she froze. Then she whispered, "Danny?" My knees nearly gave out. I wanted to hug her, scream, cry. All that came out was, "You're alive." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I didn't want you to find me." Those words cut deeper than any bullet. Inside, the cabin was filled with scattered documents, flash drives, and folders marked confidential. I asked her what was going on, why our parents had lied, why everyone had told me she was dead. She hesitated, then slid a file across the table. It had our family's last name on it, Mayfield Corporation. It wasn't a family business, Danny. It was a front. Dad was laundering money for a private defense contractor. I found out by accident, and when I confronted them, they tried to make me disappear. They paid people to fake the records. The funeral, the obituary, all of it. My mind went blank. All those years I'd mourned her, all the guilt I carried, and it had been built on a lie. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. Because they were watching you, she said. Mom begged me to stay hidden. Said if I came back, they'd come after you next. The room felt like it was spinning. And the man in the SUV? I asked. He's not with them. He's ex-agency. He helped me escape. But once you came here, her voice broke. They knew. Outside, the crunch of gravel echoed, tires on dirt. Sarah's face drained of color. They found us. Before I could react, headlights flooded the cabin. Doors slammed. Voices shouted. I grabbed Sarah's hand. This way. We bolted out the back, through the trees, slipping in the mud, branches clawing at our clothes. Gunshots cracked behind us, one hitting a tree inches from my head. We dove behind a fallen log, breath ragged, hearts pounding. There's a path by the river, she gasped. It leads to the bridge. My friend left the car there. If we can make it. Another shot rang out, closer this time. We ran. The river roared ahead of us, swollen from the storm. I could barely see through the rain. But then, faintly, the outline of a bridge appeared. We made it halfway across when headlights blazed from the opposite end. Our father stepped out of the car. Yes, him. Same calm face, same tailored coat, like he'd just come from church. And in that moment, everything I believed about him shattered. Danny, he said softly, you shouldn't have come. You lied to me. I shouted, you buried her. I protected her, he replied coldly. You think you understand, but you don't know what she did, what she stole. Sarah stepped forward, shaking. You were selling weapons to terrorists, Dad. I wasn't going to let you. His face hardened. You should have stayed dead. The next seconds were chaos. A flash, a gunshot, and a scream. When I opened my eyes, my sister was on the ground, blood on her hand. But she was breathing. Our father lay beside the bridge. His own gun turned against him in the struggle. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have called it in. I knelt beside Sarah, my hands trembling as I pressed against her wound. She smiled faintly, whispering, You always were the stubborn one. I laughed through the tears. You picked a hell of a time to come back. When the police arrived, everything felt surreal. Flashing lights shouting, rain mixing with tears. But one thing was clear. The truth was finally free. Epilogue. It's been 6 months. Sarah's recovering, and the investigation exposed everything our parents hid. Turned out the family company was under federal review for years. My search had triggered the final link they needed. Sometimes I still drive out to that old grave with her fake name on it. Not because I'm mourning her anymore, but because it reminds me how easy it is for love, guilt, and lies to tangle into something that feels unbreakable. And as strange as it sounds, that grave isn't where the story ends. It's where our family finally came back to life.